Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. Many of you have enjoyed my podcast, and you know that I've been studying nutrition and functional medicine. I've learned a ton about why we get sick and what we must do to heal. What you may not know is that before I healed with carb restriction, it was probiotics that helped heal my gut initially. And for me, it was a game changer and one I think you may benefit from learning about. During my training in nutrition and functional medicine, I learned many principles. One principle is called the 4Rs protocol. It involves removing anything that is making you sick, replacing anything you are deficient in, re-inoculating the gut with probiotics, and repairing any damage to the intestinal lining. We remove allergenic foods, chemical irritants, medications, or pathogenic microorganisms which may be causing gut inflammation. We replace by adding back and replacing anything that will aid in normal digestion or might be lacking because of our poor digestive health. For example, we need adequate amounts of hydrochloric acid, believe it or not, and digestive enzymes to break down and extract the nutrients from our food. We re-inoculate by reintroducing good bacteria or probiotics into the gut to establish a balanced gut flora. In other words, reestablishing a normal terrain for our gut, or better known as our microbiome. This can be accomplished by taking a good probiotic supplement or eating fermented foods such as kefir, sauerkraut, kombucha, and other fermented foods. And by the way, prebiotics are foods that help to feed and nourish the good bacteria. In much the same way, natural fertilizers help you garden at home. Lastly, we repair, which consists of taking specific nutrients which help support and nurture our normal gut nurture us to a normal gut lining. A few examples include glutamine, DGL, zinc, and quercetin. So, in summary, the 4Rs is a time tested approach to repairing our leaky guts. And today I wanted to bring an expert as it relates to the re inoculate portion of the 4Rs because it is my belief that she has the most knowledge in this area and has insights we can all benefit from hearing. So today's guest is literally the mother of probiotics. That's Natasha Trenev. Natasha is a developmental scientist, author, educator, and speaker, and she is the founder and president of Natren Incorporated, which is the company I chose many years ago when I started my probiotic journey. Natasha has significantly contributed to the evolution of the probiotics industry. After graduating from UCLA in 1970, a decade of research led Natasha to the development of the first revolutionary method of producing an effective and scientifically validated single-strain probiotic bacterial product. Her efforts helped to establish the entire probiotic category in the world, which is amazing. Her family played an important role in her introduction to the world of probiotics, and it's her story and perspective I can't wait to share with you today. So, with that, Natasha, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Protecting Your Nest podcast.
Thank you, Tony. It's my pleasure. This is my favorite thing to do. For 54 years, I've educated around the world professionals, lay people. I've done radio, television, newspaper, and all in the hope of educating people on how to choose the right probiotic microorganisms because I was one of the original people that claimed that all health and all disease start in the gut. And thank God I'm being proven right all along.
I'm just happy. I kind of got lucky, Natasha, when I found your company. I did some initial research, and I think I'll learn more about what I should have learned back then as we talk. But I got lucky and found a great company that was really doing a wonderful job. So I'm very thankful about that. But I do want to make sure my audience is fully aware of your story and how you became the mother of probiotics. So I know it happened, a few decades ago. So let's start our journey by understanding how that all occurred. Let's go backwards a little bit and tell that story.
Sure. I'm a naturalized citizen. My family came here in the mid 1950s when I was a child, and my father was the former official food supplier to the King of Yugoslavia. And my family was well known for producing some of the best natural style yogurt and cheeses from that part of the world. And of course, he brought his knowledge here to America and started the first company that really sold a natural style Bulgarian yogurt and liquid acidophilus in the mid 1960s. And when we introduced that, nobody knew what we were talking about. And while I was in school, I was helping my father with a lot of the English translations and making sure that the information was utilized appropriately. And then I joined the family business full time in 1970. And happy to say that I set the liquid yogurt standard in the state of California in 1969. I helped to set the kefir standard in New York in the early 1980s. And we were the first family that really identified what kefir is, what liquid yogurt is, what natural yogurt is, what bacteria needed to be used to make that yogurt. And then that field of studies led me to develop the first concentrated freeze dried form of a super strain of Lactobacillus acidophilus, one of the most important probiotic bacteria that people are ignoring today for the management of your health in the small intestine, where all of your absorption and a lot of your immune function takes place. So that was the first bacteria that I introduced. And I was also the first to introduce the bifidobacteria to the American people in also the late 1980s, which is the most important bacteria for the health of your large intestine, which is your waste and disposal system. And then I also introduced a famous yogurt bacteria called Lactobacillus bulgaricus. Now, this is so important, and very few people want to touch that because it's so difficult to concentrate and grow. But it's a phenomenal bacteria because it's actually one of the very few, maybe one in three, that can actually help to pre-digest your food while at the same time having a significant effect on stimulating immunity and eliminating waste. So those three bacteria were the core of my line, and I developed special delivery systems, special growth systems, because let me assure you, bacteria are very smart and they don't behave just because we want them to behave or we want to meet a marketing or a sales opportunity. They have to be grown and handled in a certain way. Otherwise, they won't produce results. And I have heard over and over again that, hey, I've tried probiotic product XYZ,
Hmm.
it didn't work. Why? And as the person who was responsible for setting the first probiotic labeling standard accepted by the entire health food industry in 1989, that same standard was read into congressional record in 1995. And I sat on standards committees for 10 years. And let me assure you, we have a problem in the dietary supplement industry with matching label declarations. And since the manufacturing of probiotic bacteria is rocket science, you cannot believe that all those people with these probiotic labels have anything to do with the formulation research or making of those products. And it's too important an area to neglect. And this is not just about business for me. It's about transforming people's lives and making sure that we take care of ourselves because chronic diseases, as you well know, are exploding in this country and globally. And it all stems from our stress level, our diets, what we consume on a regular basis, and how we're protecting our body as we move forward.
Yeah, all of that resonates with me. My patients are desperate for other ways to heal, and anything that's not, with all due respect, we need pharmaceuticals, but anything that they can do that's not from a pharmaceutical that really resonates with them. And I know when I started my journey with probiotics, it was like a miracle for me. I had an irritable bowel problem, and within a few days I felt better. And it was like amazing. And I didn't know anything about leaky gut at the time. I didn't know anything about any of that stuff. I just knew that I felt better. And to be honest with you, I don't think I learned anything about probiotics in medical school. So, but when I started my training for nutrition and functional medicine, I came up with my little nest and rope acronym. The O, it represents understanding our relationship to organisms, right? So I think it's important that people understand, some things are good for us, and of course some organisms are not. So I think it's important as we talk that, let's talk a little bit about explaining a little bit more about what probiotics are and how they can lead to healing. I think I understand that now, but a lot of people who are going to watch or hear this won't. So let's talk a little bit about how it heals and repairs the gut.
Great. Well, first of all, you have to have the right bacteria that want to reproduce in your GI tract. Remember, your GI tract is the tube that is connected to the outside world. And what comes in through that tube is what affects your health and your overall well being. So, this is what we need to be able to understand. Now, we're also a hybrid of bacteria and human cells. We have about 100 trillion microbes that line that 27 feet of our GI tract that's unique to us as our fingerprint. And then that 100 trillion cells has to interact with the 50 trillion cells that are found in our body. And that makes a big difference. If we don't understand that process and what we have to do to keep that bacteria healthy. So, what the bacteria do is actually, if they like your intestines and you've treated them right by the time they get there, they will attach themselves to your intestinal wall. There, they will produce not only products that are good for them, but good for your body as well. They will protect the little gates on your intestinal wall so that bad actors cannot try to break those gates and come into your bloodstream and cause a whole lot of problem. They work with the immune system by signaling back and forth with the immune system using chemicals or using photon light emissions. It's really phenomenal. And when they establish that, communication, that immune system then has more information to process and not overreact when normal nourishment is coming across the intestinal wall and work together to protect the intestinal wall so it's not breached and we get something that we label leaky gut. But that's so problematic because now you're no longer just feeding your body, you're not fueling your body, you're also poisoning your body. And then when people feel, sluggish, lousy, have poor memory or poor moods, this is what it's attributed to. What's going on in that gut where we also have our second brain. And those microbes will help the gut produce the serotonin and the dopamine, which are the feel good chemicals that go up the vagus nerve to our first brain and make us feel better and have a better outlook on life.
Wow, and so everybody listening should understand that your gut is huge. It's really the only part of your body that has gives you full access from the outside to the inside of your body. I mean, it's literally a tube that goes, from one side to the other. So I think that's important to understand and to hear, Natasha say, yeah, it affects your mental health. I mean, so that means if you have a poor diet, a leaky gut, you won't be happy, you'll be anxious, and a ton of other mental health problems. So I think that's really important. I think some people may be curious because in the intro, I suggested that, maybe, fermented foods and things like that would be helpful. But ultimately, the question is using a probiotic supplement that's well formulated, done the right way, that that's offered by the company you founded versus yogurt and sauerkraut kombucha, right? So my question is, can you just eat your way to a sufficient microbiome that's healthy, or the need to supplement? Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. Well, in the last 50 years, our environment has changed completely. We now have at least a dozen pathogenic microbes that are resistant to every known antibiotic. And these are found in the food. Your foods are not sterile.
Mm.
Every time you ingest food, you're ingesting these microbes. And so, since there's really no standard how these functional foods that you say yogurt, kefir, kombucha, or sauerkraut are made, it's really not a guarantee that you're going to get A, any beneficial bacteria probiotics, and B, that they'll have any positive effect on your body. I think functional foods are important in this day and age as a dietary inclusion, but it's not a substitute for well formulated probiotics. That's why I got in the field, because I realized the problem started, in the late 1970s. I started seeing an explosion of, illness with connected with the GI tract and so forth. And what I want to remind everyone that your body is incredible. It has the ability to heal itself. And these bacteria work to give the body the tools to heal itself. If they're not properly produced and they don't have an incentive to live in your body and interact in this environment, they're just going to pass through, because virtually 40% of your dry weight fecal matter are microbes. And so they will leave your body, they will not do much good. And this is one of the things that I want to impart to your listeners. Is it's so important to understand. You can't buy a pretty pink box and the one with the discount and think that the person selling you live microbes. Remember, these are smart single-celled brains. They don't behave because you want to get shelf stable or you want to get somebody that you're listening to. No, what we do offer, and that's why we still have staff, because both my husband and I are committed to maintaining the health of people right now more than ever. We have a whole system, a layering system. We have people that can help people decide what is best for them. And let me tell you, in this day and age, it's probably the most important decision they make, because we also offer a free diet, whether you purchase anything from us or not, and a free exercise program developed by experts, because we care. And we don't have 50 or 100 products. We specialize. We have a state of the art pharmaceutical plant that you can eat off the floor to make these products that are contaminant free, they're microbiologically pure, and they deliver results each and every time you take them.
Thank you for diving into that. And I particularly like the statement you made about the body heals itself. And one of the things I've learned is if we can just create the foundation for healing, the body is a lot smarter than a lot of the other options, which are the drugs and things like that. The body will heal itself. So adding something to your body that's going to help it heal is really critical. And that includes avoiding things that can harm us, like stress and not getting enough sleep and things like that. So thanks for that. I think about when I get a package of my probiotic, right? It comes, it's kind of cooled in a nice package. So it's still cold when I get it. And I make sure to put it in a refrigerator right away. But I have a capsule, right? And then it has like a matrix or something inside with the probiotic. So I want to talk a little bit about that versus powder, because if I go to the health food store or to like a Whole Foods, a Trader Joe's, I sometimes see things on the shelf, and then I sometimes see stuff in the refrigerator. So my brain says, well, if this is some type of live something, it has to be refrigerated. And if it's also live, is it okay to be in a powder versus a capsule? So I really want my listeners to distinguish between those things. Is that okay? Is it not okay? Could you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, very, very well. Yes. First of all, let's talk about delivery systems. Delivery systems are so important to probiotic bacteria, because one of the harshest environments they have to survive is stomach acid. Stomach acid was designed for two things: to digest protein and kill bacteria. If your hydrochloric acid is not there, or you don't reach a significantly low pH, the process of the stomach is now interrupted and doesn't function properly. So, nevertheless, what we've developed is unique in the entire world. Not even a pharmaceutical company has this. We take the three bacteria, one for your small intestine, one for your large intestine, one for the transient flora, and we microenrobe them with oil. That oil is then put in a two-piece hard gel capsule. And why do we have to use a hard gel capsule? Because you want to keep moisture as low as possible, because the smallest amount of moisture will wake up that bacteria in that capsule. And when it doesn't have food to progress, it'll start dying.
Mm.
So it's so important for you minimize any exposure to any type of moisture in the smallest amounts. Now, what's unique about this oil matrix capsule, and it's been tested independently by a very prominent European institute, it shows survival at a pH of 1.7, which is very low, for well over an hour before the contents of the stomach are dumped into the small intestine. This is so important because without this protection, virtually 70 to 80% of the bacteria you ingest will be killed. And that's for your own protection. So now, once you pass the stomach into the small intestine, for those of you who got some of your physiology, it takes bile to emulsify the oil so that the microbes can be released in the intestinal tract, healthy and ready to go and serve your needs. Without this process, you're probably not even getting a tenth of what they claim on the label. Now you ask me, why do our products come in thermally controlled packaging? Very good reason. Because if you think of, why do you refrigerate foods? You refrigerate foods is to keep the growth of the bacteria down so it doesn't spoil your food. Well, the same concept works for probiotics, because you want to keep their interaction low activity, because inside of a capsule, inside of anything, you have no food coming in and no waste going out. So if the bacteria wake up in that capsule, they'll start dying off because they don't want to waste cellular energy trying to survive in a hostile environment, especially if you try to squeeze in a lot of strains of bacteria that are not friendly to each other. It's like putting them in an extremely hostile environment, and then you put them on the shelf, and that means that that shelf may be at a temperature where they can survive. But just think of this, because I'm also a pioneer in perishable shipping in order to make sure that these products are delivered correctly. Any temperature outside in the real world, for instance, inside of a UPS, FedEx truck, or any delivery system, will reach 120 degrees if the temperature in the outside is 80 degrees for more than 20 minutes. And this is the AAA, your automobile club, that gives us information for the safety of pets and children that we leave in our car. So we know that the inside of those trucks reach a high temperature. Then people leave them in hot warehouses, not even refrigerated warehouse. The consumer who's not educated will put that product in a hot trunk, leave it in the car all day, put it in the windowsill. So if we don't specify refrigeration, that product becomes worthless very quickly, and people cannot feel the transformative effect of a real probiotic experience if they get these products that are geared to meet your sales and marketing needs. In other words, they want to meet what the consumer thinks is easy for them, not necessarily be interested in making sure that these products deliver results.
All these comments are very helpful because it helps the consumer to know, what do I need to be thinking about, what do I need to be looking for, and really just have an appreciation for why I would choose one product or one company over the other. One of the things that I'll see on the label, and I'm sure my listeners will, is the colony forming units, also abbreviated CFU, and I know that talks about, I assume, how much of the bacteria you have in the product. So my question is, how important is it that that number is high versus having the variety of bacteria? Because I hear a lot of talk about you need variety. I also hear a lot of talk about potency. So talk a little bit about what this colony forming units is all about.
Right. I take the credit for introducing the concept of potency, that you have to have a number of potent bacteria. So, unfortunately, it became a marketing and sales game. So, what they do is they put high numbers of bacteria on the carton, but it doesn't mean those are the bacteria that are survive or that you have even the bacteria that they list on those labels inside the product. What you need is a healthy bacteria delivered in a system that allows it to adhere to your intestinal wall and start multiplying its kind there. If you don't have the right environment, it's no longer going to do that. And let me explain why people go into these multiple strains. None of these companies have ever formulated or have ever truly made any of the products they sell you. And the bulk producers, which are about a half a dozen in North America, what they do is they take these cells, they grow each colony forming cell or each species to a high amount, and they put in the concentrate. So the original growth medium is thrown out, which is its home and protection and environment, and just the cell concentrates that are naked are stored. So you are customer A, and they give you this long list, and you look at the description of the microorganism and you check without any knowledge which microbes you want in your product mix. So now, when you put these products together, these bacteria together, whether it's 6, 8, 10, 14 strains, none of them are compatible because the normal state of bacteria is mutual antagonism. So just imagine putting competitive organisms in a closed ended system like a bottle or a capsule. First of all, they're going to fight for survival and dominance. Number two, some of the organisms are there in such low numbers, they don't do any good. And because I have tested these products for the last 30, 35 years, I can tell you it's usually one microorganism or maybe two that are the majority of that high count that's listed on the label. Now, you'll notice a lot of them will have this very fine print somewhere in the packaging that says potency at the time of manufacture. That means nothing. Or if they guarantee a potency through an expiration date, it's probably the potency of the least effective microbes, but the one designed to give you a higher count and look good to the uneducated. But these are the organisms who will absolutely not deliver any results because they're not designed and they're not, how shall I say, motivated to perform for you once they get inside of your GI tract. Because remember, these are smart entities. They're a lot smarter than we are. And we, in our ignorance, think that they're going to behave the way it's easier for us to take them or easier for somebody to market them. No, that's why we haven't had the kind of spectacular results we should be having with great probiotic products.
I was wondering, when I think about biodiversity in the probiotics, kind of speaking a little bit to what you're thinking, speaking on now, and I think about, taking probiotics for 3 months, 6 months, a year, years. Are there some rules for of engagement in terms of how long we should take probiotics? Is there a way to determine, is this just a symptom thing? My assumption is that you have to go by how you feel, but how do you determine if you're taking the right thing, and do you need to switch it up every once in a while?
No, well, first of all, the biodiversity talks about your unique composition of microbes. Biodiversity is not in any way generated by somebody that gives you 6 or 8 probiotic organisms. That's not what creates the biodiversity. First of all, most of them won't survive to even have an impact on your body, let alone create a biodiversity. Biodiversity is created by having the right probiotic bacteria that produce substances that stimulate other bacteria to grow and produce substances that are beneficial for the product, or you, the body. I call
Yeah.
you the product, you, the body. So what it is that it's a unique communication. It's a unique colony, as I said, unique to each individual, like their fingerprint. So you have to understand, first of all, what delivery systems you're making, what bacteria you're choosing, and are these the bacteria, what I call the core bacteria, that evolved with humanity from the very beginning. Are these bacteria that have always been with us and always been beneficial and non harmful at any level? And that's how I chose my four bacteria based on extensive study and making sure that number one, the bacteria are safe and that I'm growing them in a particular way that incentivizes them to be very beneficial to you, the human host,
Cool.
because I don't put them in a growth medium because I think of the human being. No, I put them in a growth medium because I know that's the food that they like. And if I put them in an environment that they like, they will produce the most beneficial byproducts, not only for themselves, but for the human host.
I like the ideal of probiotics. I certainly celebrate the benefits I received when I started taking them. The irritable bowel again just kind of settled down and just became a non-factor. And when it's just like allergies. People who have allergies, and I know a leaky gut can lead to allergies, FYI. But um, you know, you people who have allergies don't get the people don't understand how miserable that is what I'm getting at.
No,
So
no, I know. And that's a good point that you brought up now, because I will explain the difference between food sensitivity, food intolerance, and allergies.
yes.
And what it is, and you asked a question that I was hoping to answer fully. Should we be taking these probiotic products on a daily basis?
Mhm.
Absolutely yes. And I'll tell you why. Because every culture that I've studied, where the people were healthy, long lived, and mostly free of disease, had some kind of a fermented milk product in their diet that they consumed twice or more times a day. Unfortunately, that's not enough anymore in our society because the abuse of antibiotics. We've now produced super potent, pathogens like the E. coli OH157 that can literally shut down your kidney. That was not in that condition even 30 years ago. All E. coli were benign until the 1980s. So
Mm.
I'm just giving you an example. That is the reason why we need to be taking a good probiotic, because you become a bad, how shall I say, environment for them to thrive when you start aging. And because of the diet and other things that are happening, you don't become a good place for them to want to waste their cellular energy to live. Okay. So because of that, because of what we've done environmentally, not just in the United States, but globally, and what we've done to our food supplies and what we consume, the highly processed sugar and salt laden foods, we now need to really consume these probiotics on a daily basis. Why? Because it's a very fluid system. In other words, food comes in, food goes out, and along with that food, a whole lot of microbes go out with every evacuation from the human being. So that ecosystem is dynamic and changing every day. So that's why you want to make sure you figure out what the best supplementation program is for you. It's just like figuring out what is the best diet for you, what is the best exercise program for you. And that's why I call that the tripod of health. The tripod of health is the right diet with the right exercise and with the right probiotic supplementation. And you should enjoy phenomenal health for the rest of your life.
And it also sounds like this is not just for people who suffer from irritable bowel like I did, or people who have allergies, or people. So I guess the first question is, if you're a completely healthy person who seems to not have any medical problems, should you be taking it? But more importantly, for those who are listening, what other types of health conditions have really been known to benefit from probiotics?
Okay, well, and I'll get back to the healthy person because I'll tell you why they need to take it. But I needed to explain to you the difference between allergies, food sensitivities, and food intolerance. Well, first of all, because again, our society is introduced foods that are either hybrid or GMO'd or highly processed, the body starts reacting to these foods by first developing a sensitivity. It means that it'll allow some of it to pass the intestinal wall, but it's going to be annoyed. Okay. When that annoyance becomes persistent, then it becomes a food intolerance and you start showing signs of allergic reactions. You're not processing your food, you're not able to create energy, you're not really feeling great. And when again the system becomes chronic, then it blows up into a true allergy. And a food allergy can be very dangerous. And I'll just cite one, which is peanut allergies, a lot of times found in innocent children. It's so dangerous that can really lead to an anaphylactic shock and possibly kill the person. So that's what the difference is between an allergy, a food intolerance, and food sensitivity. So why do we develop that? Is because the body's not breaking down the food that we ingest to the right molecular size to be able to pass the intestinal wall without alarming the 80% of the immune cells that line that intestinal wall and get very annoyed when the size of the nourishment is the wrong size and they don't have any beneficial bacteria talking to them saying, hey, it's okay, it's just nourishment, relax, you don't have to get all upset.
Crazy, right? I was one of the things that blows my mind. Speaking of nourishment, is when I took my obesity training. We learned a little bit about bacteroides and firmicutes, bacteria that's supposed to be
Yeah.
good. And so my question, so I know that there's a lot of evolution occurring in this field. I think the functional medicine doctors figured this out a long time ago, and you figured it out even before that. Um, but I'm curious, like, what I learned in my obesity training is that we may not. It's going to take a large amount of the bacteria to make a difference. And you kind of suggested earlier that it's kind of assisting, but not necessarily kind of taking over your body's microbiome. So my question is there what? How are we doing with this idea of using probiotics for obesity treatment? And are there other things that are evolving? Like I heard about autism recently. Me and
Yeah.
my wife love to watch on Netflix. It's called uh, Love on the Spectrum, I think. Right. So these are
Uh-huh.
kids on this or young adults on the spectrum, and it has nothing to do with probiotics, but you learn a lot about how they function and exist in society. So the question is obesity, autism, what's the future looking like as it
Yeah.
relates to probiotics?
Well, I'm tackling both problems. And yes, you mentioned bacteroides and firmicutes, and you can't really assign to people what amount of bacteroides you have, what amount of firmicutes. It's about a balance. And I can just tell you that if you fool around with trying to increase bacteroides, there are a few species of bacteroides that are responsible for inflammatory bowel disease. So this is again with people with a lack of knowledge playing with nitroglycerin. You don't want to, when you change your diet, you find out what's causing that. And I tell people, please don't treat your body like a dump. They're sitting there wolfing down food at a fast food place, and they're not even chewing their food. They're not enjoying their food. And how do you expect the body to process stuff that you just dump in there? Okay. Your body is not a dump. So I tell people number one, sit down someplace quiet, enjoy your food, enjoy every morsel, enjoy preparing that food. That's what food is about. Think of food as the most important nourishment to rebuild your body. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I'll get to autism in a minute. That's very important, even for the healthy people, to know why they need to take the probiotics on a continual basis to maintain that healthy weight. And if they're not healthy, to get healthy. Because every minute of the day, your body loses 10 million cells. Your whole body is replaced every year. Those 50 trillion cells are replaced every year. Your body is a protein making machine. And in order to make the right proteins to replace that cellular structure, you need to be producing what I call good quality proteins. Because the production of cheap proteins, when you have an upset, in that 27 feet of your GI tract, you start producing these cheap proteins. And what do cheap proteins produce? Disease. That's another 2 hour lecture, but basically, you are rebuilding your body every year. And the fact that we're aging, why some people age better, why some people don't age so well, it's evident in your skin, because your skin will tell you what's going on the inside of a person. And until you start respecting your body and treating it like a temple that it is, and you have the right spiritual attitude towards your body by treating it correctly and spending the money on things to keep that body healthy, you will not attain the health that really our miraculous body is made to maintain for us.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Well, go ahead.
yeah, so in the case of autism, that's why now, I was ready to retire. I'm 74, but I'm still teaching and working. Why? Because the children and their plight really breaks my heart, and so I've undertaken this huge project where I'm starting an educational program where I'm customizing 4 different regimens to each of the children, because there's ample literature to suggest that these children afflicted with autism all have some level of gastrointestinal disturbance. So if without getting complicated, because that's another 2 hour lecture, if you think about it, you have 3 brains: one in your head, one in your heart, and one in your stomach. The one we call in our GI tract, the second brain, has about 40,000 neurons. It's a completely different nervous system called the enteric nervous system. That nervous system really controls the production of those feel good chemicals, and the information that's sent from the second brain to the first brain goes up the vagus nerve. And trust me, you do not want to be sending negative messages up to the first brain, because you're going to be depressed, you're going to become anxious, and you're going to feel miserable. So when you dump on your body, just think about that. It's not that your brain is separate from your gut or separate from your heart, which is part of what I call your spiritual analysis of the world and helps you think and solve problems with the spirit instead of your first brain, which is your intellectual problem solving brain. So all of those brains need to be fed properly and need to be engaged. Now, the child with autism, what we have found is that usually either one or two parents both have digestive problems in their family line for at least 2 to 3 generations. Those 2 or 3 generations, lead to a poor gut microbiota composition. That poor microbiota composition is not able to effectively eliminate toxins the child becomes exposed to. So when that child now is vulnerable to the toxins of the outside world, it's like if you think of those old fashioned scales, you keep putting weights on one end, and all of a sudden the scale tips, and we say, oh, the last thing we put on that scale is what's causing the problem, when in actuality is all those things that we've been putting on that scale forever.
Mm.
And I tell people the first way we're going to treat these children is to give the ability for the body to heal itself, fix that microbiome, develop a specific program for each child. And you would be shocked to learn that a lot of these autistic children, what is their diet? French fries, pizzas, a simple carbs, and they get very upset if you try to change their diet. And that's for a reason, because they usually have a yeast overgrowth. They usually have the bad bacteria. And believe me or not, this has been founded and proven many times, even in a court of law, that your production of blood sugar glucose that rises and falls regularly can create a psychotic episode and can make you act very badly, limit the communication you have between your first brain and your second brain. In other words, that's why we call it a spectrum of autism disorder, because depending on how many things are missing in that normal function in the body is what will now be shown to the world as a spectrum of irregular behavior.
I listen to you. I think about the world I live in, which is where we cut back on processed food, sugar, too many starches, and people do better and they heal through their diet. And I think about the people on the spectrum who may never ever hear what you're talking about. At least they haven't up to now, and the opportunity for people to heal. And I think that's why it's nice to have podcasts and opportunities to talk to experts like yourself. But but it breaks my heart that some people will never hear it. They may never hear this conversation from their doctor. In my world, it's the kid who has epilepsy, and we don't go backwards and realize that we have people on a keto diet to fix epilepsy. It's like, and the doctor doesn't even mention diet as they help the kid with epilepsy. So we really got to
Yep.
do better. And I'm gonna tell you something. This functional medicine training has been amazing in that they do exactly what you just said. They say, we have this functional medicine timeline, right? And in that functional medicine timeline, we ask questions that go back and, let's talk about, what kind of delivery did you have? Were you given a lot of antibiotics as a kid? All of these things that could contribute to things like a leaky gut. And in this case, you're saying what the parents did could have impacted whether or not a kid, not that they knew about it, but it could impact whether or not their babies, their kids are at risk for autism. So it's really amazing, and I really feel thankful that I got that additional insight because it's really helping me to see the world through a different lens. The
And
bacteria is so important that I mentioned in the intro that prebiotics are things that also are helpful. So talk to me a little. I don't take prebiotics right now, so my question is, should I be? And how does that work? Talk a little bit more about prebiotics and how
right.
they help.
Well, I know all about prebiotics, and what prebiotics are indigestible carbohydrates or sugars. And those indigestible carbohydrates or sugars are a direct feed for all the microbes, not just the beneficial ones. And for that reason, I don't use prebiotics in my products or recommend them because what I have in our food is the food that the bacteria already interacted with and and will not give it up to the body to use or the other microbes to use. And that's very important to note because of our disturbed gut flora. You cannot just give specific food and say it's only the beneficial bacteria they're going to eat it because
Mhm.
no, all the bacteria want to eat this indigestible sugar or carbohydrate. And that's one of the biggest problems we have with artificial sweeteners, something like Splenda, which completely eradicates the good balance of your microbiota and can lead to a host of problems. And that's why I say to people, if you want to really go on a diet, please don't eat anything that's not digested and used by the body because you're going to be playing a game that you don't know what the consequences are. And because of the way we changed our environment, I'm very strict about what I recommend to people because we do have a huge ecological disaster right now with our diets and what people are doing and drinking. And I just tell people forget about the sodas, forget about everything else that you've been tempted to use because remember, your body's not a dump. And if you don't know what you're feeding your microbes in your gut, there's a price to pay because in this situation, ignorance is not bliss. And that's why I'm so strict about how we produce our products, what we put in our products to make sure that each and every person who takes them gets the most results. That's not easy because it's going against the grain of what I call the discounts and then dividing probiotics. So this one is for children, this one's for adolescents, this one's for women and for men. No, all of the probiotics I have introduced either come in a specific freeze dried powder with the food that it's digested and already used for itself to make sure it has the best chance of implanting, or I use the oil matrix carrier. And I also use one of the most unique bacteria, which is called the Bifidobacterium infantis, which, by the way, has disappeared in westernized cultures over the last 50 years because of what we've done to the environment. So you can have a normal delivery and you can be breastfeeding your child. but you won't be stimulating this bacteria because only 7% of the women in North America have this bacteria to pass on to their infants. And by the way, the human milk oligosaccharides were specifically designed to feed this bacteria. Now you have to ask yourself why. If human milk over the millennia that we evolved was designed specifically to feed this bacteria, why are we not seeing this bacteria in healthy infants today? Only 7% of the whole population is terrible.
So, so that's very helpful. And as I was looking to your left, to my right, I see your book. I know your book was written a while ago. If someone purchased your book today, what would they gain from that book?
Well, luckily for me, it was published in 1994, and it's still sold today because people tell me that it's the foundation. I explain in very simple terminology why I chose a certain bacteria, the delivery processes, and why each one of us should develop a specific supplementation program of probiotics for ourselves if we're going to overcome the what I call now hundreds of problems we've created for our bodies. And I'm not against pharmaceuticals, like you said. Western pharmaceuticals are great if you, God forbid, had a life-threatening disease or
Right.
if you have, a terrible accident. But they're not really designed for long-term use or to really give the body the tools to heal itself. And that's where we have to have discernment. We have to learn about our bodies, how it functions, and how it will, heal itself if you're given the right opportunity, the right thought process, the right diet, the right bacteria, because we're all synergistic. Remember, we're a hybrid of microbes and human cells. And I tell everybody, I don't make the rules. I'm just aware
Right.
of the rules, and I'm trying to do my best to fit within those rules so that the individual will benefit.
Yeah, and I think you're right. We definitely want to use medicines, procedures, and surgeries as bridge therapy. But at the end of the day, we want to identify and address the root cause of disease. And we don't want to just treat symptoms. We want to understand, why do you have symptoms in the first place, and address that. And that's exactly what should be the paradigm shift in healthcare as clinicians try to help patients. So I think that's totally aligned with what I try to teach. Just some quick clarifying questions. So I know I asked you about the capsule. Just to clarify, there's powders, you can buy powders that are
Yeah.
probiotics that can get the job done, correct?
Right. The freeze dried powders are every super strain that we make, and the growth medium. In other words, what does it grow in? And it's producing all these wonderful neurotransmitters, amino acids, peptides for itself. But if you freeze dry the whole environment, make a holistic product, which nobody else does. Why? Because it's about $150 a pound to freeze dry.
Hmm.
So what they do is they throw out that original growth medium and they just concentrate the cells, which represent 3% of that whole product. And those 3% cells are then, blended and put into inert carrier with no protection, no food, and then they expect them to work. They won't. So we have this holistic process where we freeze dry everything together, and we give you the loose powder or we give you the powdered capsule for those of us in Western society who do not want to take powders and take capsules. And then we have our flagship, which is, the oil matrix, and comes in a specific product which is unique in all the world. Nobody in the world, in fact, none of our products are even closely copied by anybody else
Hmm.
because the process is so difficult and so unique that most people won't even bother with it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want everybody listening to understand. I seeked out Natasha because I wanted to have an expert in the field, and it wasn't really about the company as much as the person who started this whole journey. And so I want to say that out loud because I think it's important that we look at who's in front of us. Like I hope my listeners trust me because of, my training, whether it's nutrition and functional medicine, obesity, or just as a family doctor on the front lines, someone you can kind of trust. And I always say trust but verify, right? So I encourage everybody who's checking this episode out to learn more about the work you're doing. I am curious, like when you think about your ideal state for the country, for the world, for you personally, are there certain things you want to achieve? And I know you spoke to it a little bit, but where do you want to see the world in 5 or 10 years compared to where it's at now?
Well, I want to see people develop spiritually and understand that when we serve and help others, it is the highest form of enjoyment and accomplishment.
I love that.
You know,
That's
it's
huge.
to serve humanity is really what we're here for. And the gathering of money just for the sake of money is what's caused a lot of our problems. And just remember that we're all interconnected. We're one of the greater whole, just like our cells are interconnected in the body, just like the atoms are interconnected within that cell. We human beings are interconnected with each other. So whenever we hurt another human being, we're really hurting ourselves as well.
That's fair.
So that's the understanding that we have to evolve to, and that working and being productive, it should be something that we all enjoy. We should all enjoy what we're doing, and there is no greater joy than serving others and seeing their happiness and their betterment because of something that you've done.
Yeah, I love that. I think being of service to humanity is really important, and the rewards come back to you even if you're not looking for it. So I love to celebrate in my office as I record this episode my patients' victories. And I had a patient just yesterday come in. She was being successful with her dietary lifestyle changes, and she just started crying and I said, "Why are you crying?" She said, "Because the things that you've shared with me have changed my life and impacted my family. And it's just nice to, if you can leave the world a little better than you found it, right? That's really important. So thank you for that. And I guess my final question is, my nest and rope is about trying to understand why we get sick and preventing it. Rather, it's nutrition, exercise, less stress, more sleep, recovering from trauma, thinking in a way that serves you. And then the rope talks about having healthy relationships, avoiding or adding organisms that can help or harm us, avoiding pollutants, and of course, the E is for protecting our emotions and our life experiences. So as you think about your next 12 months or so, is there areas in your life you planning to give extra attention to?
Yeah, I'm putting in too many hours working. I love my work, and I need to really take care of myself because I know I'm not invincible. So I need to place a little bit more care on myself and find more time for myself. But I get so engrossed in my projects because I'm so passionate about them that I sometimes forget about that. Yeah, all of us need some rest and recreation and time to grow spiritually.
Yes, and as I look at you, as your face has a little bit of a glow on it, I know you've been taking care of yourself. So you're a good salesperson for probiotics, and of course, I agree with you. We all need rest. In fact, I'll be taking a trip to KetoCon, where I'll be speaking the week of our recording. I think we'll be releasing this episode the week after that recording. But we take those low carb keto trips, even though I speak, and we turn it into a little bit of a vacation. So me and my wife and my oldest son will be doing that. And I agree that you have to, take some time, park yourself, and enjoy life's journey. So I guess as we finally wrap up, let's share with the audience how they can learn more about the work you're doing, but more importantly, if they want to try a probiotic to heal, how would
Right.
we make that happen?
Well, first of all, I sell with my heart. You could never pay me enough money to sell something I didn't believe in. And as I said, that doing the right thing, when it involves money, is a spiritual reward, because it's not the money that's bad; it's what you do for it and with it that becomes bad. So we try to offer a wonderful service. Many of the people who work with us have been with us for 15, 20 years, and they never want to quit. They say, when you quit, we'll quit. And they just love the journey and helping people. So you deal with us in our professional division, which is called ProTrend. I have a wonderful person that's been with me forever, Mark, and we have other people that work with him that will actually help you. If you call up, I'm honoring this podcast by giving everybody who mentions your name a 25% discount. And I'll give you a toll free number to call ProTrend, or you can go on the ProTrend site. But usually you'll have to phone in, because we haven't set anything special up yet. So the toll free number for you to call is 888-381-1887, and ask for the professional division, and Mark will probably answer you, and he will help you initiate a program that you can start. If you need a gentle program, if you're sort of toxic, we don't want to go into a healing crisis, which most people are not familiar with. So our products are designed to be specifically recommended for each person's individual needs.
That's excellent. And I definitely can vouch for that. When I first started, it was nice to have a real person to talk to advise me and to give me some direction. So, and as a physician, again, we didn't learn anything about this. So everything I've learned, I've had to learn outside of my training. So I really, and I'll give credit to University of Western States. They did talk about this topic in my nutrition and functional medicine training. So I will give them credit for that. But again, I want to thank you for just carving out some time. I'm literally going to go see patients after we talk, and I know you're busy. I hope you do find time to rest and recover. You deserve that, because you're really adding value to the world. And I hope my listeners got a lot of value out of our conversation. So thank you so much, Natasha.
Thank you so much, and love and peace to all of you. And hopefully, we can make this a better world.
I shout you out for that. So today, as I speak to my audience, we were introduced for some of you for the first time to the world of probiotics, and for others, some much needed clarity was given. So, and I've learned that there are so many ways to heal from and to prevent chronic medical conditions. But my hope is that the more we create awareness, the more we can fill our knowledge gaps so that we can all thrive. So if you've never considered helping your microbiome with probiotics, maybe now is the time. And hopefully you've learned enough today so that you have a foundation, just a little curiosity to explore rather the probiotics work for you. I always tell people when they're working on their diet, just test it out. See if it works, see how you feel. And that may be a good thing for you to do here today.
And remember to chew. Tell
Yes,
people, chew each bite 10 times. Don't wolf it down.
take your time, because those receptors in your gut, those stretch receptors, if you're eating fast, they don't get a chance to tell you you're full. So we need to take our time, be present. Some people will even put the food in the middle of the table and only add to their plate what they need to eat, and then give their body time to know that they're full. So you had me at hello with those comments. So thank you so much for
Thank
that as
you.
well. So again, as we wrap up, I hope it added value to everybody who had a chance to check out this episode. Give the probiotics a chance, and of course, Natasha has given you a way to try it at a little bit of a discount. So thanks again. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until we have another episode, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.